Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, this will be a compendium of all my reviews of Bleach Thousand Year Blood War Arc Core 2. So after this introduction, you'll be able to go back and revisit all my reviews for all the episodes. There's going to be plenty of spoilers, but here are some spoiler-free thoughts of the Core 2 overall. I think they did a fantastic job with choosing what to adapt from the anime into the anime from the manga. There's a lot of cuts that were made. There's a lot of reshuffling around of things. The season began just showing us something that doesn't really come into the manga till later on, because I think it wants to set the stage for this grand war that we are about to experience. There were some really cool battles, some really cool exploration of bankais that we hadn't seen before, which that'll probably be a different video, just like my favorite things about season two. But I really, really enjoyed it. I love where we are. Uh, I think the season came to an end at a bit of an abrupt place, and then we got to see the kind of 4 minute thing at the end. Uh, that was probably not planned from what we've read on the news and seen that there were a bit of production issues, but I'll be patient for Core 3 because we are entering, although I've read the manga, I'm entering kind of like unexplored territory, feels like, because there's a lot of things that I don't remember how they kind of happen, especially now that they've chosen to reorganize or maybe even retell or re-explore. There's a lot of changes that were made, especially towards the latter back half of the season or this core. So I'm very excited to see how that plays out in the end, and I'm very excited to see what the team is going to put together. I think the staff has been doing an amazing job with pretty much the production of this. They know that Bleach is very important to a big, big part of the fan base. Like, just as far as anime fans, Bleach has some of the more passionate, and unfortunately, sometimes some of the more dumb and outspoken. But we won't go too much into that. I feel like overall, from what I saw on the internet, in my view of it, people were very pleased with Core Two, and I'm very excited to see where we go from here. So please enjoy my reviews for Core 2 of Bleach Thousand Year Blood War Arc, and make sure to stay tuned. We'll have more videos about Bleach. We also cover some other anime. And at the end, let me know what you thought of the season down in the comments. If you're a manga reader, let me know what you think of the changes in the adaptation and what are some of the things you're very excited for without going into too many spoilers. Enjoy. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach Thousand Year Blood War Arc, Episode 14, The Last 9 Days. This covers chapters 543 through 546 of the manga. There will be spoilers ahead. I'll be going through all the story beats that we hit and a summary first, and then we'll get into the review. So this episode plunges the viewers into the heart of conflict as the Vanderite prepares for their full-scale invasion of Soul Society, kind of where we left off. First of all, Yobach introduces his successor, Uryu, which draws resentment from the others. But Yobach's motives are made clear as Uryu is the sole surviving Quincy who withstood the Ashwallen when he took all the powers back. Also, we see that Ichigo is training and learns that he must do more than just be a Shinigami, right? He must surpass the state of just being a Shinigami to be able to match Yobach. We also check in with Renji and Rukia as they continue to train. We see that Byakuya has finally healed after his time in the springs. We stop by a very comedic scene with Shinji and Hiyori as they make preparations in the world of the living to allow people to go back and forth once again, which leads us to Captain Commander Sentry visiting Ichigo's friends to warn them that they may have to say goodbye to Ichigo. And then the episode concludes with the Stern Ritter moving into the Soul Society as they transform the Cereter into the city of the Quincy. And we see that battle is preparing to begin. This was a really fun episode. I was a little surprised. I forgot that Bleach was coming back this weekend until I got the alert on my phone. And as soon as I did, I made sure to get on my couch and watch. Uh, I really enjoyed the episode. I will say I'm a big fan of the new opening. I think it's really fun how um, they're using obviously the similar story of what we're about to see, but turning it into some more of a, it looks like a little crime thriller, high school drama almost kind of thing, and it's really always fun to see a lot of these characters like in different clothing, like human clothing and stuff, and then seeing Yehobot in a helicopter trying to get Urio. I thought that was really fun, but yeah, I mean, this episode was great. It's very fast paced. As you can see, a lot happened. For only adapting 4 chapters of the manga, these were exposition heavy chapters. So definitely, we have a lot that happens, right? Every scene that I described just was very well paced, very well planned. There's some really fun things that they're either restructuring from the manga or expanding on to really give more context, which is really what I wanted from this adaptation, right? I think the manga had some really incredible ideas that they just didn't have full time to develop. But I'm glad that the anime allows them to, either omit something or restructure things so that they can touch on all those things and give us the full context, right? They're planting seeds for a lot of the things we're going to see throughout the rest of this core. Um, that just really make the adaptation that more successful. Also, this episode has some stunning visuals. Whether it's the beginning where we see Yuobach being created, we even get a little bit more insight into like his origin story, which was something that we didn't really explore in the manga, which will kind of also goes to his motivations and all that. So we see a little bit of backstory on that. We see some scenes of Urio visiting his mom's grave, and also the rest of the Quincy that died on that night, and just the exploration of all those things. Right, we get to spend a little bit of time with some of the Stern Ritters that are not very happy about this decision, but obviously they're not going to rise up against Jovac and go against his word for now, at least. But yeah, I am very excited for the rest of the core. I think there's going to be some amazing battles that are coming up, and of course, seeing just everyone train and get stronger. What I really appreciated was the scene with Captain Shunsui um, visiting the world of the living. I thought that was something that they were gonna maybe omit from from the anime, but it's a very impactful scene that just it really makes you remember that Ichigo is just a regular dude that had some friends, right? So it's always really nice to kind of go back and see that to bring back all the stakes that are really, or yeah, everything that's really at stake here. So I really enjoyed this episode. It looked great. The animation looks fantastic. I don't know this studio. I'm glad they're pacing themselves as they kind of go through all this stuff, because it just shows up in the work afterwards, right? So very excited for the rest of the season. We'll definitely keep talking about it. We'll do some short reaction videos after I watch the episodes, and then we'll do some more full review videos like this. But if you haven't caught up on Thousand Year Blood War, do it now. You got a week to kind of catch up, watch this one, and kind of keep going with the war. It is a little weird that it's now airing on Saturdays, but we'll have to change it to Bleach Saturdays. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, we'll be doing a review for Bleach Thousand Year Blood War, Episode 15, Peace from Shadows. There will be spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen the episode, go back and check it out. It's really interesting that now that we have Bleach on Saturdays, when the reviews are going to come out, because that's when we do our live stream, so sometimes I don't get to it right away. It is it the episode drops on Hulu like immediate, like as we're going live on our streams. So that makes it sometimes a little bit more difficult for me to get the reviews up. I think we're just gonna stick to Mondays. If I can get it out earlier, then definitely I will. So stay tuned in the channel for that. Now, this episode covers chapters 547 through 551. Kind of, they really are kind of reshuffling a lot of stuff around from the manga and how it's arranged, and I think it helps out very much because of for the pacing of the show, to keep the tensions high. Um, there's a lot of exposition or maybe some more some things that are just more comedic in the manga that they're kind of either reshuffling or omitting altogether. So I really think I feel like the manga, I'm not gonna call it a first draft, but I feel like it's like an unedited version of the movie, and now Kubo and the team are having a second chance to go ahead and implement all the vision that maybe he had, and also just with a lot of foresight or a lot of hindsight now that Bleach has been out completed for a long time. So anyways, uh we open with a really cool scene where we see all the Stern Ritter in a table as they kind of reveal like everyone that we're going to see later on, very similar to the way that we would see the Espada with Aizen at the table. Really cool stuff. The titles also revealed there. Very much, I love how much care goes into integrating the title of the episode into each of the episodes. Is just such a great thing. Like it feels very ominous when you just see the words "peace from the shadows" appear in the TV in the table. So yeah, the first mission of the Stern Ritter, as ordered by Yuhawatch, is to kill all the captain who have lost their bankai, specifically by the people that stole their bankai. So we're gonna be seeing that in the next few episodes, starting with this one. There's a lot of interesting stuff. How the Stern Ritter explain why they were always in the shadow. So it's not so much that the Soul Society was really protected; it's just that they were always there. That's why they were called the Invisible Empire, which is such a fun thing. Stern Ritter visits the R&D where Mayuri appears. They have an interesting conversation and confrontation. Mayuri comes out in one of the most ridiculous outfits, but he shines bright because that's who Mayuri is. Ashura confronts Captain Commander Shintri at the Captain Commander headquarters. Bass B confronts Hitsugaya and Rangiku in one of the most fun and visually striking fights I've ever seen on Bleach. It's a fight of fire versus ice, where we're surrounded with this like everything's kind of covered in ice because of the invasion of the Stern Ritter. Um, and then the sky has turned red, which really adds a lot to the visuals of just of everything that's going on. It's really fun to see everything kind of come to life from the manga. Like it really is. It's just such a treat. I love Hitsugaya and Rangiku. Like they're just very ready. Like they go in, rescue members of Squad 10. They once they're finally safe, they begin the fight against Basby. Now Basby is one of the cockiest Stern Ritter of the bunch. I think they're all pretty cocky, but this like Basby really has an attitude problem, as we saw in the last episode as well. So that's a really fun battle. It's not gonna go the way you think. It's not gonna go the way you like, especially if you're a fan of Hitsugaya. So it's really interesting to see them work together to try to make up for the fact that Hitsugaya lost his Bankai. And but Bass B is not the one who stole it. So we do have that other Sternritter whose name I didn't write down, coming in towards the end of the fight. So in this one as well, we see Omaida as he's ambushed by BG9, and then rescued by Soifon. Kind of, he took a little bit of a beating. He was protecting his sister, which they did so much work in this adaptation to make me like Omaida a little better, because he's always been kind of a useless. He's the person that is part of this squad because of his status in Soul Society, and not so much because of his power, his ability, or just like him being qualified to be in that position. He's he's the nepo baby of the Gote 13. But they changed a lot. They changed a lot. Like in the manga, I believe, like Omaida's sister gets impaled by one of the tentacles from BG9, whereas in this one, he goes out of his way to protect her so much that he's the one that ends up getting impaled before Soifon comes in one of the most badass entrances in Bleach. Bleach always delivers with a last minute entrance, and Soifon does not disappoint. She's such a cool character. Being captain of the stealth forces, she was able to sneak up on BG9, who is like this very much like a technical, like he's like a robot almost, really. Stern Ritter Quincy, I don't know how that works, but yeah, he's like he has the tentacles. He has like a Gatling gun that comes out of his arm. He has the missiles in his body, like all that makes for a great confrontation. And it's an interesting parallel to when Soifun first revealed her Bankai, that was like this giant missile that does not mesh well with her being captain of the stealth forces. So it's a really interesting parallel now to see her fighting against something like that. She obviously has also been training, so she definitely gets a few licks in before things go south. So yeah, it's not looking good for the Shinigami on this episode. They take a lot of damage. They take a big beating, specifically Soifon and Hitsugaya and their lieutenants. So we'll see what's happened. We do get Mayuri receives confirmation that the few spiritual pressures have vanished. Now, we know Soifun can vanish her spiritual pressure, but I don't know if Hitsugaya can. So, what does that mean? Also, we get a last minute Urahara report that he finally figured out how to get the Bankai back. Right? He was analyzing the little pendant, whatever, that one of the Bankai that had been the from the Stern Ritter that tried to steal Ichigo's Bankai unsuccessfully. So, and then we get an amazing post credit scene. I never stop watching the show. Like I always watch all the way through the end because I know that they've been doing these post credit scenes to, first of all, to not so they don't lose the pace and the tension of the episode, and they don't interfere with the battles or anything like that. So it's really fun to put them at the end because then we've taken a second, we've taken a breath, and then we can intake more information. That's going to lead to some really fun stuff. So we see Ichigo walking along this path, being um, being rained on, and we know that this is a place that only um, the Soul Society King, I think that's what it's called, the Soul King, uh, like only he allows people to go in there. We don't really know how this is going to affect Ichigo. Is this the way that he's going to become more than a Shinigami? I feel like Tite, Kubo and the team, like I said, are finally having a chance to plant those seeds earlier of what Kubo's original vision was for Ichigo. So it continues to be just an amazing anime. Like it's got great animation. One of the other things that kind of goes underrated is the voice cast, how good it is. I think Hashirawa is one of my favorite voices in this Basby, also because he has to be loud and boisterous. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like everything, this anime continues to have been worth the wait. Not only the big time gap of so many years before this part got animated, but also just the time gap between Core 1 and Core 2. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach 1000 Year Blood War, Episode 16, The Fundamental Virulence. This episode covers chapters 552 through 554 of the manga, which is the least amount of chapters that we've covered in an episode, which is really both interesting, and I was a little hesitant once we went into it, but man, did they deliver, specifically with a lot of anime exclusive content. I think we knew from the get-go that Kubo and the team were going to use this adaptation to expand on some of the things that Kubo wasn't able to go over in the first go round, with the manga. So really great that we have a little bit more time, a little bit more focus to really get to the root of the story, specifically with those end credit scenes at the end of every episode. A lot happened this one, so let's kind of get into it. As most videos, I will go into spoilers. I think it's for me to really talk about this stuff. I like to go into spoilers, but I like to give you a warning. This is out anyways, a couple days after the original airing, so hopefully you've had time to go watch it. Uh, First of all, we pick up few very important things. The Shinigami, a lot of them lost their Bankai, and last week they were getting their asses handed to them. At the end of the episode, we see a conversation between Mayuri and Uruhara, where Uruhara mentions that he figured out a way how to get the Bankai back. And of course he did. I always love a good interaction between Uruhara and Mayuri just because their relationship from the beginning has been very antagonistic towards each other, but I feel like they both. Well, it's really more Mayuri towards Urahara. That's more of an antagonistic. But I feel like Mayuri understands and, in some on some level, respects how intelligent and how creative and the scientific mind of Urahara, even if he doesn't fully approve of his methods and just the way he is. So that's the first part, right? We know that a lot of these captains are going to get their Bankai back. Toshiro and Soifon, they get their Bankai back. They counterattack against some of these Sternritter that have been really just kicking their ass. Now, we did see a fight. Toshiro did change opponents because Boss B was not the one that stole his original Bankai at the beginning. It was Kandu, I believe his name. I am really bad with the Bleach names, so please, if I forget someone's name or misspell it or missay it, forgive me. You probably know who I'm talking about. So yeah, in the middle of the fight, Urahara puts out this announcement with all these little bugs and sends out these pills. I don't know exactly how he sends those things out, especially because they are now really not in the Soul Society. Although they did kind of hack it back. It's really weird. Don't worry about that. But I like it. I like that. I like that we get to see, you know, a little bit of hope and a glimpse of hope. But we realize that later on in the episode, Yuhobach really planned for everything, every eventuality, including the Soul Reapers getting their Bankai back. Another really cool thing in this episode that this specifically just told me a lot about the stuff that they're gonna be expanding on from the manga. These are anime exclusive scenes, specifically uh, seeing Shinji's Bankai. Now I don't know the full name. I made a put go check it out. We have a video on the channel that lets you see the full release. But man, his Bankai, like, remembering what it does, it's so cool. The reason that he already had is a really fun shikai that kind of turns everything around for your opponents, like messes with your senses. His fight with Aizen was actually one of the better ones because their Bankai is very similar but not the same in the way that they affect an opponent. But his Bankai, even further, it took it even further, right? Where it makes your enemies uh, forget who their allies are and they just start attacking each other. So we have all these Quincy just killing each other, thinking they're the enemies, and Shinji is the only one left standing, which is really, really great. We get to see some of the lieutenants, which I'm glad, some lieutenants that do have Bankai got theirs back. So that's really cool. Oh, they took the pill. I don't know if they got it back. I don't think Ikaku had lost it, but he still took used the little pill to protect himself from getting his Bankai stolen. But as I mentioned, Yobach had predicted this eventuality. So at the end of the episode, towards the end, we get to see them release their holy form, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing. Which leads me to the animation. The animation is just fantastic. The colors in this kingdom of eyes in a red sky, like, you would think it'd be very jarring to kind of keep looking at that for the full fight, but it is just so well done, so well orchestrated, so well shot. Like, it really adds, they really use all the vibrant colors in front of that to make the background stand out, which is just a fantastic way to do things. I don't really have any complaints about this episode, really. I may need to go watch it again. I'll watch it again when the dub is out, as I revisit some of these things. So if anything comes up, we'll probably talk more when I do a full review of the season. But yeah, just the pacing is amazing. It keeps getting stronger. And then we get, like I said, I like that we haven't been checking in on Ichigo until the post credit scene, because um, yeah, I mean, until the post credit scene, because that affects the pacing, right? If we go to Ichigo, like, that derails everything we've been building, all the tension, all that. But we leave that towards the end credit scene. Ichigo's still struggling. We get some really interesting clues about what may be happening, or maybe a little bit more of what we kind of know about Ichigo if you read the manga. So I won't say anything there. I really don't want to spoil anything, but they're really building that up very well, which is something that maybe Kubo didn't have time to do in his original, and in the original manga. So once again, top notch episode. I really loved it. It was so much fun. It is like after we stream live on Saturdays, it's the first thing I do. I go watch Bleach. I make a little video for my initial reaction, and then I start taking notes and going back to the manga to do a video like this. So let me know what you thought about this episode. Let me know what you thought about Shinji's Bankai, which is once again amazing. Also, Mayori's suit, like his solar suit to prevent any shadows from being in his lab, is just amazing. Like the way they've colorized it and the way that the color kind of changes tones and shapes and stuff. It's really cool. This is more continues to be more than anything I could have ever hoped for. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War Arc, Part 2, Episode 17, Heart of Wolf. We have a few things that happen here, but in this episode, the main thing is we get to see Captain Komamura's fight with Bombietta. So in the last episode, we saw that Shinji was had an upper hand against Bombietta, while he was going to allow Komamura to go fight Yuobach. But after they released their holy forms, Bambietta obviously had the edge over Shinji. Um, he got taken out pretty quickly. I think he was not expecting the effect of the holy form to be so powerful, so that definitely caught him by surprise. Uh, but then Komamura stepped in, and we finally get to see a few things from the manga. If you had read this, and this is something I kind of forgot. I think this episode really focuses on finishing out Komamura's arc. We know that he went to the Elder from his clan to get some kind of special training, unleash a new technique, and that's kind of what we see here. As Bambietta begins to attack Captain Komamura, his armor falls apart, and we are revealed Captain Komamura's human form. This is a technique that his clan uses to gain power, but it comes at the cost of one's heart. So yeah, it was. I think thematically it was a very strong episode because Komamura has always been one to fight up against revenge, right? That's kind of what his whole arc was during the fake Karakura town and when he faced his own friend. So now to see him be fueled only by revenge and just his desire to kill Yuobach to avenge Captain Yamamoto, uh, it really brings everything kind of full circle. I will say this fight had some really crazy elements. This episode had a lot of really interesting things, including we get to see the holy forms, which each of them take on a different color for each of the Stern Ritter that are wielding them. But we also get to see, like I mentioned, Komamura's new Bankai, which is the giant samurai without the armor, now in this invincible form, which was mainly CGI, but I think overall it's blended in very well. The animation it really allows them to be a little bit more creative with the fight. Uh, I forgot to mention this episode covers chapters around 555, a little bit of 555 all the way through 559, the beginning of it, not so much the ending, but just a couple of pages at the beginning. So it looks like they've really started to rearrange how everything's going to be portrayed, because they skipped over a few things that I know they're going to talk about because they've hinted at in this episode when we see that a few figures fall from the heavens back down to the Soul Society. So yeah, overall, this was a really fun episode, specifically with that part. Now, I mentioned in my initial reaction that this episode for me was not the best, and that doesn't mean that it wasn't a good one, just comparably to everything. Because Komamura is not a character that I'm fully drawn into. Like he's not one of my favorite characters. As much as I enjoyed everything that happened, he wasn't like it wasn't the highlight of it. So it wasn't something that I was like really looking forward to, as some of the other things, like Shinji releasing his Bankai, like that's something I've been looking forward to for a long time. But although Komamura's new Bankai is pretty cool, like his story is pretty sad overall, and it's kind of interesting to go back and see what you had to sacrifice and everything he gave up. But He's not fully down and out. He does turn back into a wolf um, after his power kind of runs out. So we'll see what happens then. He's definitely not done, but he's also changed kind of forever. So we'll see what happens to Kimura. We get also a few other things. Some of the other Sternritter that have lost their fights, they're being collected by Uryu, which I really like that the anime is just pushing a lot more Uryu. Like in the manga, we didn't get to see he wasn't a big part of a lot of this action. He was kind of off to the sides, but here he's being interwoven a lot more in the story, which I really appreciate. And we get some of the confrontations. They're not everybody's kind of recalled back by Yuobach to maybe regroup a little bit, or some of his main Stern Ritters. So we'll see. Some of the ones that have lost have been collected, including Bombiera, who's collected by her own group, the Bambis, I think they're called. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens to them next episode. I'm pretty sure we're going to cover a lot of that. We're also going to have the fight between the wrestling Stern Ritter taking on a few of the captains, which was kind of cut short during the manga. And then we'll figure out, hopefully, who those figures are that fell back from the skies. Now, if you read the manga, you probably already know. But and then, last but definitely not least, we get the conclusion of those end credit scenes that we had been following along with. I think it's very cool that we get to add all that little bit of extra lore and can really set up things up for the future via these end credit scenes that follow Ichigo as he's doing more training, gaining more power, but also we're being given clues about where that power comes from and what it really means, as opposed to kind of finding everything out towards the end, which is kind of the way it happened in the manga. So, another great episode of Bleach, really fun, really interesting. I love Bleach Saturdays. I like having the weekend to kind of process everything and then talk about it. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War, Episode 18, Rages at Ringside. This episode covers around chapter 560 to 564 of the manga. Kind of, there's a few things that have been rearranged from other chapters, like a few pages or conversations or little things that are either added or omitted. But it's really interesting to see how they are adapting, changing the pace of some things, omitting some things because of the same thing to keep the tension or the pacing going. I like that we do some of these things before the credits, like the catching up with Squad 11, right? They're giving everyone like a status update, including Captain Commander Shinsui, to see what's going on and also to see what the next step is going to be. And then we go back to the fight. We saw that where last we left off, two figures had fallen from the skies, but we find out who they are this time around. So if you haven't seen the episode, make sure to go back and watch it because I will be spoiling some of those things to kind of talk about them in the episode. But we see Captain Kinsei and Captain Love fight off against the Masculine, who is the Stern Ritter that kind of looks like a wrestler. He's got a little friend, Jimmy, who's his second and his biggest fan. And his powers are really interesting. I think the Stern Ritter powers have been really. I think after the last episode where I was a little bit off the tracks, which I still enjoyed, but it wasn't as hype as this one. We're kind of back in what I would call full force. So it's really fun to see those fights. Unfortunately, Mask really makes very quick work of both Kensei and Love. Although I gotta say, it was really cool to see Love's Bankai. Like it's a presented in such a fun way, and just kind of like it doesn't feel like it would be the most powerful thing, but obviously we see that it was doing some stuff. And then also how Mask overcame that adversity as well. The bankais are the place where I feel the anime uses the most CGI, but it's so well integrated, and also because it is a bankai, like almost expect it to be its own different entity. So the CGI look of it doesn't feel out of place. It actually emphasizes the point that this is another entity that's helping out the captains. So yeah, the the Soul Society is in a lot of trouble. We get a few glimpses of Yuhobach trying to just kind of just overseeing the fight. and everything that's going on. But like I mentioned, Kensei and Love are very quickly taken out by Mask because they don't figure out how to defeat his special power. Right, Jimmy, his fan, heals him, and then he, as long as he's alive, Jimmy can come back and heal. So um, yeah, it's a really interesting proposition. I think Mask looks great. His voice performance is actually one of the better ones that I've seen in a little while. Just because it's very unique, right? If you're gonna be a wrestler, you really have to sell it, and I think the performer here does a great job with that. Of course, we do get finally after the mid-credit point, we get the reveal of like it was Rukia and Renji who fell from the skies, which I, as a manga reader, I was already aware of, but it's still really cool to see how they're brought in. We get a few extra scenes of like Rukia helping out the wounded captains, taking them back to, to get healed. Because in the manga, a lot of that stuff is just kind of omitted for really time. There was just not enough time to kind of go over all those things. So I'm very glad that Kubo and the team are having the are now being allotted this time to tell the story in a more complete way. Like maybe all the stories that Kubo had originally are being put to screen now, or even maybe some stories that weren't fully part of it. Now Kubo is able to kind of reassess with the team and present them in a way that will make the story even richer. I feel. So yeah, Mask and Renji are fighting. Renji obviously has been training, and we find out that his Bankai, the Sabimaru, was not the full real Bankai. That was not the real name of the Sanpakto. So we now get to see his new Bankai, Soho Sabimaru, which we all kind of knew it was always missing the baboon part, right? If you've seen the anime, including all the fillers, you'll know that Sabimaru looks like well, at least in the anime, it looks like a baboon with a snake. So we saw the snake part of it in Renji's original Bankai, but we see that now we see the full force of it, and boy, Mask gets taken out quickly. Now I will say I think Mask had some issue, like he didn't have a very sound strategy because he used his superstar power, and it inadvertently I think killed all the Jimmies that were there. Um, but the animation for Mask's superstar power, it's some of the coolest that we've seen in a little while with any of these papers, or with any of these characters. I think the presentation is just a lot of fun. So I had a really good time. This was just a really fun episode. We do have an end credit scene here, but instead of seeing Ichigo again, we actually get a little bit of interaction between Yuhobach and Uryu, and then also Hershua, um, the lieutenant of the Yuhobach right hand man. Um, it looks like every time that one of these Stern Readers is defeated, they go back to Yuhobach, which explains, well, it's one of the reasons why he's so powerful, but also lets the viewer know that, oh shit, like if only a piece of him is this strong to take on these captains, like how strong is this person really? So that'll be fun to see. There's a little bit of tension, especially because Uryu just kind of brought in to be this heir to the empire, if you will. So that'll be fun to see. I'm glad that the anime is allowing Kubo and the team to go back and maybe restructure the story for Uryu, because in the manga there was a like Uryu's story was so short and it kind of came out. It almost feels like it came out of nowhere. So we're able to reassess and just kind of, I don't want to say correct, but expand on some of those themes and rearrange them in a way that they just bring out the true potential. It almost very similarly to this episode. It almost feels like maybe the manga was as cool as it was like not the complete version of a Bankai like Renji's, right? So now the anime is allowing for the full potential of this power to come out. So really fun stuff. I'm so excited to see what's coming up in the future. So Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for episode 19 of Bleach, that Thousand Year Blood War arc, The White Haze. This is a little bit late. Some stuff came up during the week, but here we are. So, for the most part, this episode covers chapters 565 through 570. There's bits and pieces of things that have been omitted from previous chapters, which we'll get to in a minute. So let's talk about some of the minor storylines and how those came out, and then we'll get into the meat of the episode, which you probably know exactly what I'm talking about if you've seen it. So, real quick, we get to see a little bit of Ichigo with Squad Zero as he's trying to depart back to Soul Society. I love this because it reminds me of like when Goku had to come back from Snake Way, from King Kai's place. Obviously, he's already late. The battle's already started, and he's got to hurry back. There's some really beautiful animation. I love that most of Squad Zero was there to kind of see him off, and they just really they made this a little bit more serious than it was in the original series or in the manga. There were some funnier moments that were kind of omitted, but I think that's par for the course. Now we know that the anime is being streamlined to stay within the tone. There really haven't been a lot of some of the more comedic moments, but I think that's okay. I think we're here for a more serious battle, and that's kind of what we're getting out of this. So that's pretty good stuff. Next, we really quickly touch on the fate of Kandu and BG9 after they were defeated. We saw that their bodies were taken back to the palace, and now we know that they're being put to death. And because it seems that as we are learning, every time one of these Stern Ritter, one of these Quincy's that have been imbued with the essence of Yuhobach, when they lose or they die, they are sent back to uh, to Yuhobach to be absorbed back, and he becomes more powerful. So it's really interesting because then this means that the more that the Shinigami succeed by destroying the Stern Ritter, the more powerful Yuhobach will become. And then we get a little conversation between Uryu and Hashra about how all this works, and that Ryu should be aware of all this because he has drank the blood of Yuhobach. So it'll be really interesting how all this plays out. I think if you read the manga, you know a little bit of where the story's going, but it's I'm glad that we are touching on all these little things before everything, right? In the manga, a lot of this stuff kind of got saved towards the end or had to be told via some additional materials like the light novels and stuff like that. But here, Kubo and the team are really bringing everything in to give you full context of everything that's going to happen. So yeah, it makes and it makes for some of this stuff to be very well paced because it gives us little breaks between the action to kind of relieve some of that tension from the battle or to await or move on to the next part. So what we are really here for, the main event of this episode, it is the battle between Rukia and Asnot. Obviously, Asnot was the Stern Ritter that defeated Byakuya and took his Bankai, and now Rukia is come back. We get to see a lot of her growth. We get to see it's a really interesting fight because Asnot as the fear, his power set is really interesting. I think it lends itself to some really dark animation. I think this is where the animators and the director really are making a difference because they're able to bring some of these concepts from the manga to life in such an incredible way, right? We had seen it in the first battle with Byakuya, but here we revisit that, even crank it up to 11, I would say, when it comes to the fear and how that is portrayed, Haruki is able to kind of counter that, but then things are always escalate once he goes into his holy form. It's just such. There's so many cool details. It really feels like a horror anime at some points that the team really goes for it. We get to see some of Rukia's loved ones turn into skeletons, kind of the way we saw that happening in Byakuya's fight, and the way fear affects everything. There's this really beautiful animation that's also a little bit of fan service, where Rukia, uh, is affected by the fear, and we kind of see that in a very it's a very visual way that it's all brought into the screen. Asnat transformation is really cool. I like the design a lot, and just it gets more and more grotesque as it goes by. But then we get to the part of the episode that was my favorite, and this is Rukia's unveiling of not only her new powers and her new control, uh, but her release of her bankai, and it was amazing to see. I was flabbergasted. I love the design. The animation is beautiful. Like the design of Rukia's Bankai, like her character as in Bankai form. It's amazing. It's beautiful to see. It's probably one of the more popular images if you search for Bleach. With a safe search on. Yeah, it's amazing. And then after that, we get a little bit of conversation between Byakuya and Rukia and how he helped her overcome for the fear. I guess that was before her Bankai transformation, and then but also then afterwards, Byakuya helps her kind of come back out of the Bankai state because it is definitely a difficult one to handle, something that can backfire. But man, oh man, the acknowledgement of Byakuya and with Rukia's new powers, it was such it was so nice to see. It really completes a whole arc that we have been following since the anime really started, right? The first part of this anime, the original Bleach, the first part was all about Rukia being put to death because she helped out Ichigo and gave up her Soul Reaver powers, and Byakuya had to stand by the law. But now we see how things have changed. The relationship has changed so much, and we've learned so much about the relationship that it's a really rewarding for longtime fans of the anime or the manga as well. So really enjoy this. We get a little post credit scene as well, of course, as we've been getting that. One thing I really enjoyed too was that we kept going through the credits. Like it was really cool. But yeah, we get a little post credit scene with Squad 4, and the appearance of a new Stern Ritter, the Vanishing, and then this signals that we're gonna get another one of our favorite characters coming back in the next episode. So if you know, you know. No spoilers here though. Let me know who you think it is down in the comments if you haven't read the manga. But I am very excited. Core 2 has been just hit after hit. There's probably like only one episode that I was like, okay, this is one's a little bit underwhelming, but that was about it. Everything else has been a home run, and they just keep hitting it out of the park because there's so much that I'm waiting for. I'm really excited to see how they play out the rest of the season or the rest of the core, where we're gonna leave off, and how that's gonna move on to the next part, and then how long we're gonna have to wait for that. So hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War Arc, Episode 20, I Am the Edge. This episode covers the most manga material we've seen in an episode yet in this adaptation. 571 through 579, a little bit of 579, most of it, like maybe about half of it. There's a lot of really cool things to talk about, so I'm just kind of going into detail using the events of the episodes to kind of highlight some of those points. So there will be spoilers ahead, so make sure you've seen the episode. First of all, we catch up with Yachiro and Isane against Guanel, who we saw the vanishing point, the Stern Ritter who kind of vanishes, and I really enjoy so that part of the episode I had forgotten, like that part of the manga I kind of forgot, like how this was going to play out. All I knew is that we were going to get a big surprise, right? So we have, some really cool visuals when 1L does the version 3 of his power, where he is erased from existence, where it just kind of looks like this giant big tentacle monster thing, like that's kind of only in the background. It's a really neat way, but I really like, of course, that Yachiro, like, she has the fighting instinct. We get to see her Shikai, so that's all very cool. Uh, this episode was definitely going at a breakneck speed, trying to fit in all those things. I don't, it cut out a few things, but I think from the manga, but I think overall it did a good job because it's looking to adapt and highlight and stay in the tone of the fight that's coming up. So then we meet Grammy, who comes in, and as he is about to kill Yachiro with some really fantastic effects and animation of how like her arm crumbles as it's made of cookies, and then her whole body or her bones are made of cookies because of Grammy's power, who is the real V Sternritter, right? Not the Vanishing Point. So, yeah, I mean, we get finally the return of one of my favorite characters, Kinpachi. His design looks great after the fight he had with Unohana, to really forge and reforge his body until he could unleash the full amount of his powers that had been sealed away by his own insecurity of not finding someone who would be strong enough to matter. So that's really cool. We get a really cool zoom in on Kenpachi's blade as we go into the episode card. And then just to see how jagged and destroyed it is as we zoom in closer and closer, it looks really cool. Um, this fight is one of my favorites that we've had. This is probably my favorite episode of Core 2 after last week's. I think last week's episode with Rukia was outstanding. But this one's very close, right? Like, I really love Kenpachi as a character. I love how cocky he is. I think the voice work for both Kenpachi and Grammy's characters is really good. Although I will say, I think I like the actor for Kenpachi in the dub version better. So I can't wait to see how that sounds in a few weeks when we get the dub adaptation of this. Uh, there's some really interesting use of CGI to highlight and to kind of bring forth Grammy's power of imagination. There's some lava that's spewed at Kenpachi. There's some guns and some firearms that are pointed at Kenpachi as he's trying to use everything he can in his imagination. And it's a really interesting power to explore, but it could have been very wasted, and I feel like it could have gone very wrong. But I think Kubo and the story and that everybody working on this like really found a good way to highlight how this power of imagination can go. I really like that the fight is streamlined and focused on them. We only cut out to one of the other Stern Ritters who's looking in on the fight. I know in the manga, there's a few reactions later on when we get the meteor scene from all over the place, from different Shinigami and different Stern Ritter and even Yuobach and stuff. So, but I'm okay with them omitting that because first of all, it would have taken attention away from the main fight, and I think also would have been distracting and maybe not allow them to fit everything they did. So, although I wish they had kind of gone through the credits on this one like they did last week, I think that would have been good to keep the momentum going. But we'll talk about that in a second. Of course, Kenpachi cutting a meteor in half is some of the coolest things I've ever like. It is one of the scenes that I was waiting for to be animated, and I was not disappointed. And then we finally see Kenpachi's Shikai, and Grammy here starts to become desperate. He copies himself. He sends him off to space, like to die in space in the vacuum of space. And Kenpachi, like first of all, the reaction there has like his internal liquids like boil and his eyes dry up and like it looks amazing. I think it's animated very well, uh, and the music just as it switches back and forth between like the theme of the Stern Ritter and the fight, and then whenever Kenpachi is kind of fighting back, we get those guitar riffs that really that represent Kenpachi. I think that was all very well done. And then we finally get to the end of the fight. Grammy's defeated, and he has an after credit scene, which this is the part I wish they had just kind of kept going through the credits, or maybe just even leave it as before the credits and then not do an after credit scene. But we have Grammy kind of reminiscing about all the things he could have done and how he finally imagined himself dying because Kenpachi is a monster, right? So I love it. I love how cocky Kenpachi is and how brutal. Like he's one of those characters that is just like, yeah, I'm the strongest one, and that's all there is to me. There's not much there, but of course we know there's way more. Now that Kenpachi has a Shikai, there's much more to look forward to, and Kenpachi's been on the list of those individuals that could present trouble for Yuhobach, right? Like Ichigo and Aizen. So I'm very excited to see how this plays out next. We know Ichigo is coming back to the Soul Society, making his way down Snake Way Road, if you will. So yeah, very excited for all that. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War Arc, Episode 21, The Headless Star. This episode covers chapters 579, like half the last half of it, through around 586. So we got quite a few chapters covered in this one. Now, just before we get into the review, next week there will be no new episode, so there will be no review video. It's going to be a recap episode of everything that's kind of going on before we get to the actual final episodes of the season. So just a little programming note. So yeah, and then the last two episodes, I believe they will air concurrently at the same day. So stay tuned for that. Make sure to plan for a longer Bleach weekend than normal. So let's get into this one. There was a lot of stuff going on here. We kick off with Kenpachi versus the Bambis. We have Candice, Lil Toto, Giselle, and Meninas. We get to see just really after everything that Kenpachi went through with Grammy, like there was no chance that he was going to be able to take them all out. But he still put up quite a fight. We get a little bit of an extended scene from the manga, which is really cool to see. We don't get to see as much of this confrontation in the manga, so it's really nice that they're taking time to expand on some of these things that are pretty cool. We have great designs for the Bambis. We also have really cool animation, especially when they unleash their holy form. So let's kind of go through what happened in this episode, and we'll talk more about each of those things. So we also have Rukia and Byakuya as they're going to try to help Kenpachi. They realize that Ichigo is back. They can sense his Ryatsu. I love the the way that their face, their expressions were captured, especially Rukia. Like she has this grin, like she knows things are about to get better. So that was really cool. We also have Ichigo versus the Bambis, which is such a cool, like really fun fight. Really cool moves. So we get to see some new powers from Ichigo and the Bambis. We get to see like some hand-to-hand confrontation, and we are just realizing now how powerful Ichigo really is, right? He very quickly can take care of them. When Ichigo uses his new Getsuga Juigishu, he tells Candice to dodge because he knows that he doesn't want, I don't think he wants to kill her, which I think it's an interesting way to portray that Ichigo wants to stop this fight and protect the Soul Society, but he doesn't. He's not the necessarily a killer or somebody that wants to just kill all the Stern Ritter, maybe except for Yihobach. So we also get a little bit of a change in the manga. It is Yihobach who explains how the membrane works, but in the anime, it's Mayori who kind of explains, like Ichigo came through, left a hole in the shield, the 72 shields that are protecting the Soul King Palace, and now Yuhobach has 60,000 seconds or 6,000 seconds to get up there before it closes back up. So, uh, which is really like it all really fits together into Yuhobach's plan. Like, but also we don't know. Like, there's more to it. There's definitely more that probably will happen. There's some hidden intentions from some of the Squad Zero members. We get a little hint of that, which I think is really fun. It's a fun way to like tease it out, and also expand on maybe what Kubo originally intended the story to be. So, and we get a Ichigo confronting Uryu, and then also Chad and Orihime return, which is also a quick change from the manga where Orihime protects Ichigo from Uryu's arrows, but not necessarily. She's not necessarily there. They don't show up till later on. She kind of does it remotely or like from far away. So yeah, this has to be the episode where we have the most named characters show up all at once. We got a bunch of Stern Ritters. We got I believe 6 Stern Ritters, including the Bambis, and then we also have a lot of the Shinigami that are trying to help Ichigo, get to Yuhobach and Uryu and Hashira before they head out to the Soul King Palace. So really good stuff. Really well animated fights. It was really fun to hear the number one like the remix of the number one song. I love that's one of my favorite songs. Like when it hits because Ichigo's back, like that just takes me back I don't know, like 15, 20 years ago, whenever I was watching Bleach originally, and then the soundtrack came on. So really, really fun stuff. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War, Episode 22, Marching Out the Zombies. This episode covers roughly chapters 587 through 591 of the manga, for those that are keeping track of that. And it was a very good episode, very well paced, very exciting. A little bit of different tone now that we took a little bit of a break, because we are ramping up. Right, the last few episodes of Bleach of this core will run through September, including a double size finale on September 30th. But yeah, this one had a little bit more of a comedic tone, even though it had some of the fights. We left at a really high tension place at the end of the last episode, right? We pick up right at the end, like right after Uryu and Yuhobachi and Hashira are like going over to the Soul Palace, and Ichigo confronts Uryu. Orihime and Chad show up to kind of save, help him out and also confront Uryu. So like we left off in a place of very high tension, because a lot is happening now. Some of the story from the manga, it's been probably removed and will be adapted in later episodes. They kind of did that to streamline some of the story and just kind of focus on Ichigo and the group that's in the cemetery. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. This was a great episode, though. I think it's a really fun way to take a little bit of a reprieve before we get into like this, the last four episodes that are going to be probably very intense, very battle heavy, trying to give us a little bit of levity right before that. So very much appreciate the tone, because I think overall Bleach was always a very funny, full of gags manga, like very humorous manga. And I don't want that to be lost in the anime adaptation. So I'm glad that we have an episode like this where we can poke a little bit more fun at that. So I'm gonna get into spoilers now. So if you haven't seen the episode, make sure to go check it out. But I highly, highly recommend it. This is part one of two. The next episode is called Marching Out the Zombies 2. And if you read the story, you know that it takes place over a lot happens in this arc. So let's get into it. So, as I mentioned, we pick up from the end of last episode where Chad and Rohime and Ichigo are all confronting Uryu as he leaves them. He ignores them, and as they ascend to the Soul Palace, this causes a massive, massive wave, a wave of air and blast, like a blast that reverberates all throughout the Soul Society. So we kind of check in on all the groups that were around the area, including, first of all, before the credits even kick off, Orihime, Chad, and Ichigo, who were protected by Orihime's shield. Urahara shows up and tells them, like, I'm sorry I'm a little late, but I can get you to the Soul Palace, so let's go figure that out. So they go over there, we get the credits, the opening song, and then here we are. Then we check in where all the other Shinigami are. We see that Baz B confronts Renji and Rukia. Baz B and Renji have a very humorous exchange about, Renji's giving him a little bit of shit about his mohawk, and he calls him like a rooster head. Whereas Baz B compliments Renji on like his eyebrows. He's like, your eyebrows are so cool and sharp, and whatever. So it's a really fun exchange. And I think Renji got the best of that one there. So we'll definitely see that fight probably happen in the next episode. We also see that Byakuya protected himself using Zenmon Sakura, from the blast and the debris, but he is now surrounded by three other Quincy that are still around, including Nanana, I think is his name. So we'll see that. We'll probably also see that fight in the next episode or in the next few episodes. So before we get into the main fight here at the second half, we check back into Squad 12, where Urahara has the preparations that he has his own. He has a soul cannon that he's going to use to get them over to the Soul Palace. He mentions that it's not as effective as the cannon that we know from season one, because he doesn't have the technology or the magic or the know-how from that family. So they are the protectors of that entrance of the Soul Palace. So, but anyways, we get to see Yorichi's back. she's a great character. I love her. I love to see her back. They kind of condensed her coming back. There's a lot more comedic moments in the manga, including like a conversation about Orihime's outfit, and how Uraha recommended her wear that for Ichigo. And then Jorichi has a very special greeting, that's very hands-on. If you know Yorichi's character, and if you read the manga, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. We also check in on the visors and what the mission that Urahara had given him. So they are collecting these rifts between the Soul Society and the world of the humans, that will be powering this cannon. So Yorichi comes back with that. So really cool to see them. Really cool to check in on all the visors. There's some more comedic stuff there, as they kind of like they complete the project, right? So that's really fun. So yeah, it was very cool to kind of see and check in. I like checking in on all the other people that are not in the Soul Society, because I'm a big fan of all those characters. I think Bleach just has some really fun characters. Tite Kubo has always been, the way he creates characters, like they're all very quirky and different and special, and they're all very likable, right? For the most part, I can't think of many. Even the villains are very intriguing. So, all right, then we get to the mid credits, or the mid part of the episode, and after the break, we come back. We see Giselle being confronted by Ikaku and Yumichika. They very quickly figure out that they shouldn't cut her. They shouldn't make her bleed, because that will, that'll be something adverse that'll happen. Now we know that she will turn them into anybody that she bleeds on. She turns into zombies that she can then control. So then, since they don't fall for a trap, we get to see Bambietta come back as a zombie. So if you remember, a few episodes ago, the Bambis were all like helping Bambietta, but we get to see the gruesome part of it, where actually Giselle had to maybe like finish killing her to turn her into a zombie. It is revealed that she can't turn Quincy's into zombies while they're still alive, like she could do with Shinigami. So we get a fight there. Obviously, Bambietta is a lot stronger than Ikaku and Jumichika, especially because they don't really know what her power is until maybe it's too late. So then this is one of my favorite moments here. One of my favorite characters shows up. Mayuri shows up in this big, bright outfit. Like, I love how pretentious he is, but also like how much grander than life this character is. He is one of those characters that just choose the scenery every time. Kudos to the voice actor, because I think he does a very good job. Also, the Giselle voice actor, like their conversation back and forth, as much fun as it was, like very comedic, but it's also like really really intense. So I like that. So Giselle reveals that she has a bunch of Shinigami that she's turned into zombies, and this is where Mayuri reveals that he himself has his own little army of the undead. So we get to see, if you remember, after his fight with Azazel Aporo Gantz from before, um, he went into the lab after he killed him, or after he gave him the super soldier thing that then ended up killing him. He goes into the lab and he takes pretty much whatever he wants. One of those things was some of the corpses from some of the espadas that Ichigo and the team defeated back in Huecamundo. So we get to see some of those espadas back. It was some of the fracciones, so it was, like they were a lot. They were not the main espadas, but it's really fun to see them back. I really like those characters. I think they're fun, they're quirky, they're weird. This episode probably has a lot of the most weird characters that you can have, and like that we've seen all throughout Bleach. So that's really fun. We get to see a lot of really cool explosions and some fighting. We get to see a Zero blast that we hadn't seen in a long time. Very well animated. So yeah, Giselle's her back's up against the wall, so she kind of placed the ace on her sleeve, which is the reveal of Zombie Hitsugaya. Now, if you have read the manga like me, I this is one of the moments that I do remember. There's a lot of stuff I forgot from a long time ago that as I see it happening, like I remember, but this was something I was expecting coming back with Zombie Hitsugaya, and that's where we leave off the episode. Like I said, very cool fight, a lot of really fun animation, really interesting character exchanges, which just make out. They really they break the tension right before we get back into it. We're about to get into probably the most high expectations for the episodes that are coming up. So this was a really nice break before that. So, like I said, next week we'll get Marching Out the Zombies number 2. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review of Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War, episode 23, Marching Out the Zombies 2. This is going to be the conclusion of the stories and fights and everything that we were looking at last week. And of course, we are also moving the story forward a little bit with everything that's happening in the periphery. So before we get into this review, this episode covers from around chapters 592 of the manga all the way to the first few pages of chapter 597, for those that are keeping track along with the manga. So we have a few things, and I'm gonna go a little bit into spoilers here. So make sure to have seen the episode before we talk about it. We continue with the fight of Mayuri and his zombies versus Gigi and her zombies. So that definitely continues. We also have some anime exclusive stuff of Byakuya versus some of the Sternritter that are still around. We have Pepe Love showing up, which I have very, very interesting thoughts on. Well, I don't know if they're interesting, but they're definitely not very nice. And also, we have an after credit scene of Yuhabach, Uryu, and Hashua as they arrive at the Soul Palace, setting up what will be a great episode next week. So yeah, let's talk about it. So I had forgotten a lot about what the resolution to the fights here. Hitsugaya coming back as a zombie, and as well as some of the other captains coming back as zombies, obviously puts a bit of a crimp in their plans of the Shinigami as they're trying to, make sure they can maybe go help out Ichigo and the gang as they try to catch up with Yuhobach. But I mean, man, Mayuri is probably the MVP of this arc, if not maybe this whole war. I had forgotten how important he was. He is just so prepared, and that could be annoying. But the way that it's done in this, like in this anime, is just a lot of fun. Because Mayori is one of those characters that you kind of love to hate, or even love to love. Like he's such an asshole. So yeah, he very quickly, very harshly, and very interestingly disposes of Hitsugaya. He does this really cool thing where he kind of traps him in a time loop with one of his drugs. Then he has his own his Spada zombies take out the captains and then recaptures them. I think it's really cool that Mayori just like did very. We didn't even get to see him fully take out Giselle. It just kind of happened. Like that's something that just kind of happened. Then also Byakuya at this point, he's so powerful. Does very quick work of the Stern Ritter that he's fighting himself, including Candice, who is still one of the last few that were still remaining from the people that we've been following around. We also have, I believe his name is Nanana, but we didn't get to see him much of him. But then one of my least favorite characters shows up, and I forgot about this dude until we kind of mentioned them. And they talked about him a little bit, like even some of the other Sternritter don't like this dude, but Pepe Love to me feels like just I'm not a fan of the character, like his whole vibe, his whole like power of love. Like I don't know, I feel like Espada, I believe his name was Zomari Ruru. I don't know how to say that. I think it's spelled like the French way. But I think he was Espada number 7. When he himself fought Byakuya, like he did it better. Like he had more gravitas about him. He felt like a more of a threat. Pepe Love almost feels like a creepy joke. So yeah, I was not a big fan of that. I'm glad that he was taken out very quickly. We do see, I think it's Totori, that one of the other Bambis that's left kind of take him out. So we'll see what happens with them next week. But yeah, I was not a big fan of that. So, and since that was such a big part of the episode, it did kind of take me out a little bit of enjoying it as much, just because I'm not a fan of the character. I don't think it had anything to do with the craft of the episode itself. But yeah, just not a story choice that I enjoyed when I first read it in the manga. And the manga is even longer. They condensed it a little bit, so I'm glad that we didn't spend much time or more time than necessary with that character. And then, like I said, we jump to the end credit scene. Yuhobach, Uryu, and Ashura arriving at the Soul Palace. It looks great. It's a big contrast going from these dark, creepy red backgrounds that we've been experiencing at the Soul Society to the bright blue skies of the Soul Palace as they arrive. Uh, Man, we don't have a lot of episodes left. We have episode 24 next week, and then on the 30th, we have 25 and 26, which will wrap up this core. But yeah, so far, this season has been pretty. Oh, this part two, I guess, has been really, really fun. Really cool fights, some comedic moments. I was a bigger fan of last week's episode. I think for Marching at the Zombies, part one was a lot more fun than this one. But this one had some great stuff. I think Byakuya needs a little bit more time in the spotlight, so hopefully we'll get to see that in the next few parts of this story. So very excited to keep going, but I'm also going to be very sad when we don't have any more Bleach to watch. But yeah, really enjoy this stuff. I will try to catch up on the Bleach watch along videos. Those take a little bit more time to put together, but we'll have them on the channel. Hopefully, I can kind of catch up, maybe a little bit after the end of the score. So tell me what you've enjoyed about this episode, what you've enjoyed about the score. What do you think of, like, the animation, the pace? All it looks like we are kind of hitting the brakes a little bit now as to how many chapters we're covering per episode, which is it's fine with me. Hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War, episode 24. Too early to win, too late to know. For those keeping track of the manga, this covers chapters 597 through 601, plus a few other bits that had been like from previous chapters and maybe forward chapters. So one of the main things that I enjoyed about this episode is that we are working with some anime exclusive events that they're expanding the lore that we missed in the manga. They're reworking some of the scenes to make them fit better into this narrative that Kubo was trying to tell all along. So, as somebody that up until this point, like, this is kind of where I get lost in the manga. Like, my memories are not as strong with remembering what's happened when upon my read. I think there's a few big things that will pop out as I see them in the anime, but like, I'm really glad that at this point, like, I'm kind of going into unexplored territory, like very, very, like, even from the opening scene. So we're gonna get into spoilers. So if you haven't watched the episode, make sure to watch the episode before you watch the rest of this. But we open up with a flashback sequence, which is, I'm pretty sure it's an anime original stuff. Ichibe and Yuhobach, 1,000 years ago, set up in gray tone, so you know that it's a flashback, which is really cool. I think it adds to the mood and the gravity of the situation there, where Yuhobach and Ichibe are talking about how to achieve peace within the kingdoms. Right? Ichibe suggests that his the nation of light should align with the Quincy that are on the world of the living. Like, they should, because I guess to that point they were different. Even though they were all Quincy, like, there were different sections or nations, whatever you want to call them. But we find out that the true reason that Ichibe visited was to seal away Yuhobach's almighty ability, like the thing with his eyes. Like, there was a panel where Yuhobach looked a little bit cross-eyed, but it was because you could see, like, I didn't. If you look closely, you'll see more pupils than there should be. So that's kind of why they're all over the place. But yeah, Ichibe very quickly takes care of business. He kills a bunch of Quincy that attack him at the moment there. I'm really looking forward to Ichibe's fight in the future because, man, he is OPAF, as the kids would say. Next, we flash to Senjumaru receiving Yuobach at the Soul Palace. Um, Really cool scene. Like, it really feels like it just, the way that it's kind of like I'm gonna say shot, but like the way it's like the way the scene is constructed, the music, all the cues. It's also really cool to finally have the like normal lighting again, like without all the red, with all the red that's happening at the Soul Society because of the takeover. So it's nice to be like, it really feels like we are in a different moment of this story again. Uh, so very cool stuff. It feels like a big fight's coming, and of course is gonna come soon. We do cut to Ichigo and the gang about to take off in a rocket, and this is where we still get a few moments of levity. We get a little bit of a gag and a little bit of jokes. Ganju shows up to join them, so it is Yorichi, Ganju, Ichigo, Chad, and Orihime that are all going up in the rocket. That will go up in the rocket to the Soul Palace. Once again, we flash back to the Soul Palace. Senjomaru quickly disposes of like the little small soldiers that are brought up, so they have to keep escalating. And then we intercut that fight with all the stuff that's going on in the rocket. When the rocket takes off, it's very comedic because it doesn't take off in a straight manner like we've seen before in the other rocket that Ganju and his sister uh, helped them before. Um, it takes off in a very comedic fashion, and it goes around like we get to see the reaction from everybody that's still fighting down there at the Soul Society. And of course, Mayori has a comment like, "I would have made this take off even better," or something like that. Very like clearly, you can tell Mayori is a favorite of not only Kubo but probably also everybody working on the anime. So that's really cool. We get to hear Ichigo and the gang talk a little bit about the lore and some exposition needed for like what we're about to get into. Jorichi, of course, being of royal descent, being part of one of the royal families, and Ganju same. So they have a little bit of knowledge of that, all the events that are going on. Um, so Senjomaru and the rest of the Zero Squad show up. They trap Yuobach and his people in in a cage like this. They pretty much trap them, so they can't. It's a really cool sequence that I mean, you should go watch it, but it's a really cool sequence where they trick them all along. But finally, Yuobach's royal guard shows up, and they have a fight, which man, I'm not even gonna talk about it. It's just one of the best fights we've seen so far, uh, because of how brief it is, and it just feels like it's really putting over the Zero Squad, Zero Division. But Yuobach finds a way to teleport outside the cage. I think from some of the hints and things that I've seen online, it feels like Uryu was the one that helped him achieve this. Like he had a Quincy badge that he threw out there, and then they switched places. I don't remember exactly what Uryu's full ability is, so I don't want to like speculate. But we did have a moment where we flashed to Uryu. His badge was flashing a little bit. You could see the blue tint in his eyes from the power that the Quincy have. So something was going on there, and we end this episode with Ichibe and Yubach confronting each other once again to book in the whole episode. Kind of where we started. Big cliffhanger, no end credit scene, right onto the credits. And next week we'll get the 2 episode finale. So I'm really excited for that. But another fantastic episode. It also makes me very excited about the next couple of cores, like to wrap up the series, because this tells me that there's not a lot of manga material left. So like this tells me we're gonna get a lot of anime exclusive stuff to really make sure that everything makes sense. Very excited for that. As much as I really enjoyed the manga the first time I read it, there were a lot of big plot holes and things that maybe they just didn't have enough. Kubo didn't have enough time to get to. So I'm very happy that we get to have this kind of second chance. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Bleach: Thousand Year Blood War. Episodes 25, The Master, and 26, Black. So, there's a lot to talk about here. We got a 2 episode finale for Core 2 of Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War. It may not have ended where most of us thought it was going to end. It may not even have ended the way we all kind of assumed it was gonna end. I think there's a lot of surprises in both of these episodes. Now, for those keeping track with the manga, they're not adapting too many chapters, but I will say this: both of these episodes we end at chapter 609 of the manga. That's kind of where we leave off. There's a lot of new anime exclusive footage. There's a lot of shuffling around of things from different chapters. So the best I can do is tell you that chapter 609 is kind of where we are at the moment. So let's get into it. We're gonna go into spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episodes, go watch the episodes. What's wrong with you? Go watch the episodes. They are outstanding. Like, overall, both of these episodes were fantastic. Like, I was glued to my seat for like the whole 45, 50 minutes that I was there getting through the whole thing. I did skip both of the openings this time around, so I will say that because I was just kind of ready to get into it. So yeah, let's dive in. So we pick up with Urahara and the Vizards preparing to go to the Soul Palace. We know that Ichigo and the gang has already kind of gone ahead, and then we meet Yoshiro, who is Jorichi's sibling, which is really cool. Like, I completely forgot about that aspect of it. We are so deep into the manga that this is the part where I really hadn't read it over and over, like while waiting for it to finish. So like, especially because they're also doing so many things to change things around, that this is for the most part unexplored territory. There's a few things between the fight between Ichibe and Yuhuwatch that I still kind of remember, like the big moments. But a lot of this other stuff, I mean, not only is some of this stuff anime exclusive, like a lot of this stuff's been shuffled around so much, or it was so minuscule in the manga that they've expanded it a little bit here. They removed it around, so it really has a bigger impact. So, big scheme of things here in the Soul Palace, we see Yuhobach facing off against Ichibe where we left off last week. We also have Zero Division, who are now facing off against Hashira and Uryu. So we finally get to see Hashira's ability of balance, which is really cool. It destroys the cage that they're kind of trapped in. And then we see Senjomaru attack Uryu. Senjomaru plays a pivotal role in these two episodes, by the way. If you liked her before, you're going to love what they're doing here. Like, they really put her over very well. So yeah, we see the fight against Uryu. Something really cool in the anime, like the blood vein power, where they use that as a shield. It looks great. I think that's one of my favorite parts. A lot of the Quincy powers, they have been animated in such a fantastic fashion. So we got a good flow of events as well. I think we're moving around very quickly. But these fights are so much fun. Like, I could spend just a whole video talking about each of the specific fights. But yeah, Sinjamar probably expanded up new abilities, new little things. I love the way she has that thing when she's fighting Uryu, that she makes an umbrella and kind of stops the reishi like that he's shooting at her, and then sends it back out. Like, just the creativity of all these powers for a lot of these things that we have never seen. So very cool stuff. So Zero Division kind of wins the first round of these fights. Uh, then we cut to probably one of the weirdest scenes that we will ever experience in Bleach. And this is an anime that has had a lot of fan service and weird things, and like, like little pervy moments. But Giselle is very disturbingly, in a very weird fashion, in a very detailed animated scene, is drinking Bambietta's blood in a God, very weird stuff. So, but it is kind of cool to catch up again with some of the Quincy that are still down at the Soul Society. It is at this point that things are gonna turn up a notch, because obviously, Yuhobach and his Quincy in the Soul Palace are at a big disadvantage. Ichigo's fight is not going well for Yuhobach. He keeps getting slapped around by those giant hands. Ichibe has made a seal, which also all the animation for each of his powers and the adaptation, it's really cool, because his power of like, with this giant pen and the ink, and it's all very visually stunning in the manga, but once it's brought to life in the anime, it just looks very cool. But to turn the tide, Yuhobach cast the Aswallen. Hopefully I said that right. Some of these powers are very difficult to pronounce. Uh, Big bright animation, just amazing stuff. Like this is some of my favorite stuff that has been animated. Probably my favorite animation happens later on in the next episode, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So this power, of course, it takes the power from all the Quincy below to not only power up Yuhovach, but also revive any Quincy that he deems necessary at the time. In this case, he revives his royal guard as well as Uryu and Hashira, who had been defeated by the Zero Division. So this is kind of where we end the first episode, but there is an end credit scene. Really cool stuff, setting up stuff for the future that I do remember. Of course, Sentry and Ukitake finally meet up. They have a little conversation about a ritual that has been completed by Captain Ukitake, who I'm very glad to see again. He's always, like we'll get a lot of into his backstory, I think, in the next core. So that'll be fun to explore. And of course, Sentry is heading off to Central 46 to make some other preparations. If you've been keeping track since Core 1, you know where he's going and you know why he's going there. So stay tuned for that. I can't wait to see that next core. Then we begin the next episode. This is episode 26, titled Black. Now, according to the original, I don't know, leaks or whatever, they've changed the name of the episode to Black, and I think there appears to have been some production issues that maybe caused this episode to be a little bit shorter and not really end where we anticipated this to maybe end the fight with Ichibe and Yuhovach, but it doesn't happen that way. So, well, let's talk about it. First of all, we see the Royal Guard counterattack. They get up, they are back to life. They are powerful again. Their wings are out, like they are in full power. We get to see some really cool abilities from both them and the Zero Squad, the Zero Division. Like bringing Nimaya back to health after he gets shot by the X-axis. The X-axis is an I think, man, all the Royal Guard guys have like these really OP abilities, but Kubo just still found ways to. Well, Kubo and the staff that the everybody that's working on the anime, um, they found such interesting ways to kind of tie everything and make sure that the powers are level and that we get an interesting fight. But it looks very cool animation of Senjimaro patching up Nimaya to make sure that that hole that giant hole in his body is sealed away. So it does appear that the Zero Division is now losing this second round to the Royal Guard, which is really cool. We also go back to Yuhovach, who tries to steal each of his power, like the power of the Black. Of course, we know that's not gonna work out the way he hopes. But we cut to probably the coolest sequence that we've had this core, maybe even in this whole Thousand Year Blood War arc. The Zero Division is about to make a comeback. They finally are about to unleash their true power. Senjimaro is picked to take out the enemies, and it's a pretty gruesome way to power up. So because their power is so extreme, they've sealed it away with their lives. So in order to unleash Senjumaru's full potential, everyone else in the Zero Division takes their own lives, and they activate her true power, which we get to see Senjumaru's true Bankai that is visually just a stunning feast. I like the themes of like this loom and the thread and the fabric, like just everything, like as far as her abilities go, are really cool to see. We also get to see some reactions from the world of the living, because she mentions that the reason they don't utilize this full power is because it will shake down all the realms, including the human realm and all that. So we get to see some reactions from Ichigo's dad, Uryu's dad. Like they're the ones that kind of feel this working, and they know that something big is happening. Yeah, and then the Bankai itself looks amazing. I don't even care that it's like mostly CGI. Like it's very well integrated into the animation of the episode. Oh, the way she takes out each one of the opponents, it really foreshadows a lot some of the fights that we'll see probably in the future. I don't know what I don't know how they're gonna make the changes and what changes are gonna stick, what things are gonna change, because I feel like one of the big things on the to do list was for Kubo to really put over the Zero Division and show us how powerful they really are. In the manga, they were kind of taken out off screen while Ichibe and Yubatch were fighting. That was a fight that we were mainly focused on. And then later on, the Gote 13, everybody kind of gets up to the Soul Palace, whatever. I'm sure that'll happen later on in Core 2, 3, and 4. But yeah, like the Zero Division kind of went out like very unceremoniously, and I feel like the anime is adjusting and making some of those corrections, which is really really cool. So that's kind of where we are. The Zero Division is now back in control. Now, obviously, only Senjomaru is there because everyone else, took their own lives. But uh, back to Ichibe and Yuhovach. As Ichibe recovers his own power, he just takes it back, and he explains as he unleashes his Shikai. He explains the true power of the Black, which is he controls everything, all the black in the world. And then he uses his Sanpakto to mark and rename his opponent. So he covers Yuhobach like in black ink, and he renames him Black Ant. He is now the king of the insects, he calls them. And we see those gigantic hands just slapping Yuhobach around. And that's kind of where we leave off. It's a pretty big cliffhanger, right? The fight's not over. We don't know what's going to happen. And then there's a 4-minute sequence at the end, which I was very happy to see. I think that's going to be a pretty divisive um, thing for the fandom, because the Shinigami Illustrated Guide segments were not everyone's favorite. I think not a lot of people, not like it's kind of split into how many people enjoy Bleach for both the cool action stuff and also the gag of it, like the fun moments, and like how sometimes it could be very like just not serious about things. But we get to see Kon back. He has his own segment. They recreate some of the moments that we omitted from the manga into the anime, but only like not really visually animated. It's just like little icons of the characters, and then the voice actors just kind of going over the lines from the manga. Really, like they were pretty much really reading from the manga. So, yeah, I didn't mind. I thought it was a really fun surprise. I always love seeing the little after credit scenes in Bleach. Very similar to like Blue Lock has the little things at the end that are supposed to be that are just funny. They're not really moving the story forward. Now this one was kind of long, especially since we left off. But I would rather the production staff take the proper time to adapt how they want to adapt things than to rush everything and maybe feel like because this is a big fight. Yuhobachi and Ichibe is a big fight, and it's a really interesting way that all the stuff gets resolved there. So I would rather them take their time and just I'll wait till 2024 so we can see it done properly. So very happy about the way this second core has wrapped up. I'm just seeing some incredible stuff that I would never thought would have seen adapted to the screen. So very cool stuff. I don't know what the Bleach coverage is gonna look like from now on. There's really not a lot to talk about once the anime is off the air. I tried to do that last time around, and there's just really not a lot of content to prepare. But I am gonna rewatch the season or the core in the dub. I'm really actually looking forward to that, which will allow me to also maybe focus more on the animation. So I might make some videos about just some of my favorite moments all throughout the replay as we kind of go back around. There's a lot of really good stuff, right? We have unveiling of many bankais, including Renji's, Rukia's. We get the return of Rukia's brother, whose name just escaped me at the moment. So yeah, very excited to cover all that stuff. Very excited to talk more about Bleach in the future. Um, Stay tuned. There's probably another video in the channel very soon about the little trailer that they played, like a little preview of Core 3. So I'll definitely be talking about that as well. And then, whatever comes up, let me know down in the comments. What did you think of this ending for Core 2? And what do you want to see from Bleach in the next couple of arcs that we have to kind of wrap things up for sure. So yeah, stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone.